So, here we are again. Donald Trump has managed to put the FBI in a very uncomfortable position. But this time, it's not the usual political drama we're used to. Oh no, this time Trump is doing something a little bit more financial. That's right, he's forcing the FBI to scramble for funds, and it's not just about the usual budget cuts we've heard about before. This time, it's about asking them to accept a budget that is worse than ever. In fact, it's so bad that the FBI is basically looking around asking, how are we even supposed to do our jobs if we don't have the money to do them? And let me tell you, it's not pretty. Now, we've all heard about the typical budget cuts, government agencies getting slashed left and right, but the FBI? Seriously? The FBI is responsible for a lot of things, folks. They handle everything from counterterrorism to cybercrime to domestic violence. And yet, here we are, looking at a situation where the very agency responsible for keeping us safe could be crippled by a lack of funds. But here's the real kicker: while the FBI is in a panic over the budget cuts, we've got Trump on the other side telling them to suck it up. What's worse? Trump's new budget proposal doesn't just cut a few thousand here and there, it's slashing the FBI's funding by hundreds of millions of dollars. In fact, the FBI is now asking for $1 billion increase just to keep things running smoothly. That's right, $1 billion. And you might be wondering, what on earth could possibly be so expensive at the FBI? Are they buying new office chairs? Upgrading their computers to the latest version of Windows? No, they need that money to actually do their jobs. And by do their jobs, I mean the job of keeping the country safe from threats like violent crime, terrorism, cyber attacks, and basically every bad thing that could go wrong in our society. So, what's Trump's response to the FBI's requests? Well, let's just say it's not exactly sympathetic. Instead of hearing, "We're in this together," all the FBI is hearing from Trump is, "Cut, cut, cut." He's slashing the budget of some of the country's most important agencies, and he's doing it without thinking about the consequences. Sure, you might think budget cuts are a good idea when you're trying to save some money, but what happens when those cuts affect the very institutions responsible for keeping you safe? That's the real question here. Now, I'm not saying that every penny should go to the FBI. No one's arguing that we should have an endless budget for every government agency. But when it comes to national security, to protecting American citizens from real threats, do we really want to be playing around with budget cuts like this? Does anyone really think that cutting the FBI's budget is going to make us safer? Because I'm pretty sure the FBI needs more resources to keep up with the bad guys, not fewer. So, this leads us to the real question: why is Trump so hellbent on cutting the FBI's budget? Well, it's a bit more complicated than just cutting back on government spending. You see, this goes beyond just the FBI. There's a bigger picture here, a political picture. Some people argue that Trump has always had a bit of a strained relationship with the FBI, especially after the whole Russia investigation thing. Let's be real here, Trump has never been a huge fan of the FBI, and the feeling might be mutual. But that's a story for another time. For now, what we're looking at is a situation where the FBI is trying to keep us safe, but Trump seems more interested in slashing their resources rather than giving them the tools they need to fight crime. But don't just take my word for it, let's look at the facts. The FBI is one of the most important agencies we have. They fight cybercrime, they prevent terrorist attacks, they catch violent criminals, and they do all of this with a limited budget. Now, imagine trying to do all of that with even less money. That's what Trump's budget would do. It would get the FBI's ability to perform its most basic functions. And for what? To make a political point. To save a little money here and there. Because, honestly, I can't see how cutting the FBI's budget is going to lead to a safer country. If anything, it could put us all at risk. But here's the part that really gets to me: Trump doesn't just want to cut the FBI's budget. Oh no, he's also putting the brakes on funding for other important agencies like the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF. That's right, Trump wants to reduce the funding for agencies that are responsible for combating drug trafficking, firearms trafficking, and organized crime. But hey, who needs those things when you've got tax cuts, right? Now, let's dive into the numbers, because when it comes to budgets, numbers are everything. The FBI is asking for a $1 billion increase to keep operations running smoothly. $1 billion, that's a huge amount, right? But before you start thinking it's for a luxurious office upgrade, no, it's to maintain current operations. The FBI handles everything from tracking down terrorists to stopping cybercrime and tackling violent crime. These aren't small tasks, and they require resources. But instead of giving them the money they've asked for, Trump is proposing cuts. Not just a tiny cut either. He's suggesting a $545 million reduction in the FBI's budget. A reduction that would bring the FBI's funding back to 2011 levels. Yes, you heard that right. 2011, nearly a decade ago. Can you imagine trying to fight modern crime with outdated resources? The FBI is facing new and evolving threats every day, from cyber attacks to domestic terrorism, and yet Trump wants to put them in a position where they have fewer resources than they did almost 10 years ago. It's like trying to fight a fire with a garden hose while the flames are raging. This isn't just a small cut. It's a decision that will directly affect the FBI's ability to protect you and me. Think about it, how effective would the FBI be if they had to lay off staff, cut back on operations, and reduce their capacity to tackle threats like cybercrime and terrorism? Without the necessary funding, they won't be able to keep up. And if they can't keep up, then the rest of us are at risk. What's even more troubling is that Trump's budget cuts don't stop with the FBI. The cuts also extend to other crucial agencies, like the DEA and ATF. These agencies are responsible for fighting the drug trade and curbing gun violence, both critical issues in our country today. By slashing their budgets, Trump is weakening our ability to combat these problems and protect our communities. At the end of the day, the FBI needs this money to continue doing their job. Cutting their budget isn't just about saving a few dollars, it's about putting all of us at risk. We depend on the FBI to stop terrorist attacks, catch violent criminals, and prevent cybercrimes. And without the funding, they won't be able to carry out these vital functions. This isn't just a minor issue, it's a matter of national security. If we don't invest in our law enforcement, we are opening the door to more crime, more violence, and more threats. So why is Trump doing this? Why is he pushing for these cuts despite the clear risks involved? Some might argue it's personal. There's no love lost between Trump and the FBI, especially after the Russia investigation. But whatever the reason, the fact remains that these cuts are a serious mistake. Instead of reducing the FBI's funding, we should be looking for ways to increase it so they can continue to protect the country and keep us safe. Now, let's talk about Trump's strategy. Why exactly is he pushing for these cuts? Well, on the surface, it looks like a typical move to reduce government spending. But when you look deeper, it's clear that there's more at play here. Trump has always been keen on cutting budgets, especially for agencies that he feels are either inefficient or hostile to his administration. And the FBI? Well, the FBI hasn't exactly been on his Christmas card list. It's no secret that Trump has had a complicated relationship with the FBI, especially after the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. And let's be honest, after all the drama surrounding that, it's easy to see why Trump might hold a grudge. But here's the problem, the FBI is an essential part of our national security. Whether Trump likes it or not, the FBI is responsible for keeping us safe from everything from cybercriminals to terrorists. And weakening them through budget cuts isn't just a political move, it's a dangerous one. But here's where it gets even more problematic. Trump's cuts aren't just a simple reduction in funding, they're a complete cutting of the resources that the FBI needs to operate effectively. The FBI is tasked with dealing with everything from violent crime to preventing terrorism to keeping up with evolving technology, like the rise of cyber attacks. So when you cut their budget, you're not just hurting their ability to track down criminals, you're putting the entire country at risk. If you look at Trump's budget proposal, it's clear that he's more interested in making a statement than in actually keeping the country safe. Instead of strengthening the FBI and giving them the tools they need to fight modern crime, he's weakening them and, frankly, putting the whole country at risk. Let's break this down for a moment. If the FBI can't keep up with technological advances, they can't fight cybercrime. If they don't have enough staff, they can't investigate terrorism. If they don't have the resources, they can't protect Americans from criminals and extremists. And while all this is happening, Trump is sitting in his office, acting like everything is fine. He's slashing the FBI's budget, yet not offering any real solutions to deal with the growing threats to national security. It's like trying to fight a fire with a garden hose that's only got a little bit of water left. It's not going to work. You can't put out a blaze with just a trickle of resources. And here's the thing, Trump's cuts don't just affect the FBI. They affect every law enforcement agency across the country. From the DEA fighting the drug trade to the ATF tracking down illegal firearms, Trump's budget cuts are essentially telling these agencies to figure it out on your own. But it's not that simple. These agencies need funding to do their job, and by slashing their budgets, Trump is making it more difficult for them to protect us. Now, you might be asking, why would Trump do this? What's the end game? Well, that's the real question, isn't it? Some people believe that Trump is more focused on political power than on the actual needs of the country. After all, cutting the FBI's budget is a way for him to strike back at an agency that hasn't exactly been friendly to him. But here's the thing, personal grudges and political agendas shouldn't interfere with national security. The FBI plays a crucial role in keeping us safe, and slashing their budget is not the way to show strength. It's clear that this isn't just about saving money or reducing the size of the government. This is about putting political gain above public safety. But the problem is, when you weaken the FBI and other law enforcement agencies, you're not just making a political statement, you're endangering everyone. And that's something we can't afford to ignore. The FBI doesn't just investigate crimes, they prevent them. They stop terrorist attacks before they happen. So, now that we've covered why Trump wants to slash the FBI's budget, let's talk about why this is such a terrible idea. The reality is, the FBI isn't asking for $1 billion just for fun. They're asking for this money because they are underfunded and need the resources to do their job. It's not like they're just sitting around, twiddling their thumbs and deciding they want more money to go on vacation. No, they're asking for these funds because the stakes are higher than ever. The threats we face today are more complex, more dangerous, and more widespread than ever before. Let's start with the basics. The FBI's job isn't just to solve crimes that have already happened, it's to prevent crimes from happening in the first place. That's why they're responsible for preventing terrorism, stopping cybercriminals, catching drug traffickers, and stopping organized crime. But without adequate funding, they simply can't keep up with the ever-evolving tactics that criminals use to evade detection. In other words, criminals are getting more advanced, and the FBI needs more resources to stay one step ahead. Take cybercrime, for example. The world of cybercrime has exploded in recent years. Hackers are stealing sensitive information, bringing down entire businesses, and disrupting our infrastructure. Cyber attacks aren't just something that happens in movies, they're real, and they're happening right now. And yet, despite the growing threat of cybercrime, the FBI's resources are being slashed. How can they investigate these crimes when they don't have the proper technology or personnel to keep up with the rapidly changing landscape of cybercrime? The answer is simple, they can't. Now, let's talk about terrorism. The threat of terrorism is still very much alive, both internationally and domestically. We've seen how quickly extremist groups can grow, recruit, and carry out attacks. The FBI's job is to identify these threats before they become full-blown disasters. But how can they do that if their budget is being cut? If the FBI loses the ability to recruit and train agents, or if they don't have the technology to track terrorist activity online, we are left vulnerable to attacks. The FBI plays a critical role in identifying and stopping potential threats, and without the funding they need, that becomes a lot harder. And let's not forget about violent crime. In many parts of the country, violent crime is on the rise. Gun violence, gang activity, and drug-related crime are all major issues that law enforcement is battling every day. The FBI is a key player in addressing these crimes, particularly when they cross state lines or involve organized crime. But again, how can they effectively fight these problems if they don't have enough money to hire the necessary agents, run investigations, or gather intelligence? The answer is they can't. So, what's the alternative? Do we just hope that these crimes and threats will magically go away on their own? Because that seems to be Trump's plan, cutting funding for the very agencies that protect us from these dangers. But the reality is, if the FBI doesn't have the resources they need, the consequences could be catastrophic. We could see more terrorist attacks, more cybercrimes, and more violent crimes. And when that happens, we'll be left asking, why didn't we do something sooner? The truth is, national security is not something we should be willing to skimp on. The FBI doesn't just deal with one type of crime or one type of threat, they deal with everything from terrorism to cybercrime to drug trafficking. And in today's world, they need more resources to stay ahead of those threats. Cutting their budget doesn't make us safer, it puts us all at risk. Now, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about a bit of a personal drama surrounding Trump's pick for FBI Director, Kash Patel. Patel, who is no stranger to controversy, has found himself in the hot seat recently, but not for the reasons you might think. You see, while the FBI is facing severe budget cuts and struggling to maintain operations, Patel has been under fire for his personal use of government planes. Now, before you start thinking, oh, it's just a small issue, let me tell you, this is not a small issue. It's an issue that raises serious questions about the priorities of this administration. While Patel is flying around in a government plane, the FBI, which is supposed to be focused on national security, is having its budget slashed. And guess what? The money that could be used to keep FBI operations running smoothly is instead being spent on personal travel. How does that make any sense? Patel has claimed that his flights were for official government business. But here's the thing, federal regulations clearly state that when government planes are used for personal travel, the individual using them is supposed to reimburse the government for the cost of the flight. And yet, Patel has refused to provide any evidence that he's done that. In fact, he's being investigated by Senate Democrats for this very issue. So while the FBI is over here scrambling for enough resources to protect the country, one of Trump's top picks is making headlines for taking luxury flights at the taxpayers' expense. The issue here isn't just that Patel is using a government plane for personal reasons, it's that this is happening at a time when the FBI's resources are being drained. While Patel is flying high, the agents on the ground are struggling to keep up with rising threats because of the cuts to their budget. Think about it, if we're willing to let one of the highest-ranking officials in the FBI use government resources for personal purposes, what does that say about our commitment to national security? It seems like a slap in the face to the men and women who are working tirelessly to keep us safe, only to be told that there isn't enough money for the resources they need. And it doesn't stop there. It's not just the FBI's funding that's being scrutinized. Patel's use of government resources has opened the door for questions about accountability and ethics in this administration. If one of Trump's top officials is getting away with misusing government planes, how many other officials are doing the same thing? And when you combine that with the ongoing budget cuts to critical agencies like the FBI, it's easy to see why some people are questioning whether this administration truly values national security. Here's the bigger picture, the FBI is underfunded and overstretched. They need every penny they can get to continue their vital work. And yet, instead of focusing on securing the FBI's future, we're dealing with personal scandals involving government plane usage. It's a distraction, and it's a waste of time. The real issue here is that we're jeopardizing national security by cutting the FBI's budget and allowing unnecessary wasteful spending elsewhere. If the FBI can't even count on getting the funding they need, how can we expect them to keep us safe in a world where threats are only getting more complex? Let's talk about the bigger picture here, the relationship between the White House and the FBI. We all know there's been a lot of tension. From the Russia investigation to the firing of FBI Director James Comey, Trump's history with the FBI has been anything but smooth. And now, this hostility is showing up in the form of budget cuts. Instead of supporting the FBI, Trump seems more interested in retaliating for past investigations. But here's the problem, the FBI isn't just a political tool. They are essential to national security. They protect us from terrorism, cybercrime, and organized crime. And by slashing their budget, the White House is putting our safety at risk. The FBI needs resources to keep up with growing threats, but with reduced funding, they won't be able to effectively do their job. Trump's administration argues these cuts are necessary for fiscal responsibility, but the reality is that cutting the FBI's budget does not make us safer. The FBI is already stretched thin, and with less money, how can they protect the country from new and emerging threats? We saw this during the rise of terrorism and cyber threats. Without the proper resources, the FBI struggles to stay ahead of the game. And when they fail, we fail. The real issue here is that Trump's cuts aren't just about saving money, they're about politics. He's been at odds with the FBI for years, and now, he's using budget cuts as a way to retaliate. But this isn't about personal grudges. This is about the safety of American citizens. National security isn't something we should play political games with. If Trump continues with these cuts, the FBI will be less capable of handling threats. Terrorism, cybercrime, and violent crime won't stop just because the FBI has less money. This is about our security, and it's time for the White House to stop using national security as a bargaining chip. So, what do you think? Should the FBI be tightening its belt while top officials are flying high on taxpayer-funded jets? Or is this just another episode of politics first, security later? Either way, we're clearly living in a time where the phrase, do more with less, has become the government's favorite joke. If you found yourself shaking your head, or laughing out loud, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and smash the notification bell so you won't miss the next deep dive into America's greatest reality show, budget cuts and power plays. And hey, drop your thoughts in the comments. Should the FBI get that $1 billion boost? Or should they just open a GoFundMe?